The morning air was cold, sharp enough to sting the skin. On the corner of Maple Avenue, a woman sat quietly beside a coffee shop's brick wall, her knees pulled close, her uniform still faintly smelling of antiseptic and rain. Her name was Alina Graves, once a registered nurse at St. Joseph's Hospital, now a ghost among the city's morning rush. The cup beside her rattled when the wind blew, a few coins clinking, a haunting echo of what her life had become. Her eyes were hollow from sleepless nights, but still kind, still searching for a reason to keep going. Across the street, through the tinted glass of a sleek black car, someone noticed her, someone who hadn't looked at a stranger that long in years. That man was Ethan Marlowe, 38, a single father and the CEO of Marlowe Industries. To the world, he had everything: money, power, reputation. But behind that perfectly ironed suit and measured expression was a man barely holding together the pieces of a broken heart. 2 years ago, his wife, Claire, had died from a sudden heart failure, leaving him with their 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, who had since retreated into silence. Ethan had been trying to balance board meetings and bedtime stories, but Sophie's quiet eyes and shrinking world haunted him. And now, as he looked at Alina shivering in her torn uniform, something shifted inside him. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. She looked like someone who'd been carrying more than her share of pain. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Journal. It helps us spread stories that remind the world that compassion is still alive. Ethan didn't plan to stop that morning. He had a meeting downtown, a dozen people waiting on his word. But something about Alina's eyes made him slow the car, roll down the window, and ask softly if she needed help. She blinked, startled, unsure if he was talking to her. No one had looked at her directly in weeks. She shook her head at first, embarrassed. But when she tried to stand, her knees gave out. That was it for Ethan. He stepped out, offered his hand, and said words that would change both their lives. "Come home with me." At first, Alina refused. Her pride screamed louder than her hunger. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man who pitied people. He was the kind who fixed things. He called his driver to take her to a nearby diner, ordered her warm food, and sat quietly across from her. Between hesitant bites of pancakes and trembling hands around the coffee mug, Alina told him her story. How she'd lost her job after standing up for a patient who couldn't afford treatment, how her landlord threw her out when she fell behind on rent, and how she'd been living out of a shelter for 3 months. Her mother had died years ago. Her brother hadn't spoken to her since. She'd run out of safety nets long ago. Ethan listened without interruption. When she finished, he said quietly, "You helped people when no one was watching. Let me help you now." The words were simple, but they carried weight. By afternoon, Alina found herself sitting in a warm guest room in Ethan's modern house on the hill, its tall windows overlooking a sunlit garden where little Sophie played with her golden retriever, Luna. For the first time in months, Alina took a hot shower, slipped into clean clothes that weren't torn, and cried silently into the towel. Not from sadness, but from the sheer relief of feeling human again. Days turned into weeks, and what began as temporary shelter became something deeper. Ethan gave Alina space, never crossing her boundaries. He simply made sure she ate, had clothes, and had a place to rest. In return, Alina found small ways to give back. She cooked simple breakfasts, watered the plants, and eventually started spending time with Sophie, who had spoken only a few words since her mother's death. But one morning, as Alina knelt to tie Sophie's shoelace before school, she heard a small, shy whisper. "Thank you." It was the first time Ethan had heard his daughter speak in nearly a year. That night, he stood by Sophie's doorway, watching her sleep, while Alina quietly folded laundry nearby. Their eyes met in the dim light, and for the first time in so long, Ethan smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "You did something no therapist could," he said softly. Alina shook her head, replying that all Sophie needed was to feel safe again. Ethan didn't say it, but he knew. Alina was becoming the light that his house had long forgotten. Yet life wasn't done testing them. One morning, Ethan received a call from his board. News had spread that he was harboring a homeless woman, and investors were questioning his judgment. The media painted her as a charity project, twisting everything into gossip. Alina overheard one of the calls and packed her things, ready to leave quietly. She couldn't bear being the reason Ethan's reputation suffered. But when Ethan found her by the door, suitcase in hand, his calm voice broke slightly as he said, "Don't you dare disappear on us. Not again." That was the day Alina realized something. Ethan didn't see her as a burden. He saw her as part of his family. So instead of running, she stayed. Together, they faced the whispers, the judgment, the sideways looks from the wealthy elite. Ethan told his board in no uncertain terms that no amount of business mattered if it meant losing his integrity. His company weathered the storm, but more importantly, his home began to feel alive again. Months later, Alina found a new purpose. Using her nursing background, she proposed a foundation, the Marlowe Wellness Initiative, a program offering free basic health care for the homeless and uninsured. Ethan funded it entirely, giving her full control. Watching her speak passionately at the launch event, surrounded by sunlight streaming through tall glass windows, Ethan felt something deep stir in his chest. She wasn't just helping others, she was healing herself too. Sophie, now brighter and confident, often held Alina's hand in public. The little girl began calling her Ailey, affectionately, unaware that every time she did, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. But Ethan kept his distance emotionally, afraid that his feelings might be too soon, too selfish. He told himself she deserved someone free from past scars. Still, every time Alina smiled at Sophie, he felt a quiet warmth spread through the house like sunlight breaking through clouds. Then came the day everything changed. During one of the foundation's outreach events, a patient suffered a cardiac arrest. Alina jumped into action, performing CPR until paramedics arrived. The man survived, but Alina collapsed afterward, exhausted, her hands trembling. Ethan rushed her to the hospital, sitting by her bed through the night. In the pale morning light, when she finally opened her eyes, he whispered, "You can save everyone but forget yourself." Her tired smile said everything words couldn't. It was in that sterile hospital room, with sunlight spilling over the white sheets, that Ethan realized something undeniable. He didn't just admire Alina. He loved her. Not out of gratitude, not out of loneliness, but because she had rebuilt his broken family, piece by piece, without asking for anything in return. Weeks later, on a bright Saturday afternoon, Ethan took Sophie and Alina to the same park where he used to take Claire. There, under the open sky, Sophie ran ahead chasing Luna, laughter echoing like music. Ethan turned to Alina and said, "You came into our lives when we needed saving the most. And now, I can't imagine home without you." Alina's eyes filled with tears as he added, "You once told me I gave you shelter, but you gave us a reason to live again." There was no grand proposal, no cinematic kiss, just two broken souls finding peace in each other's presence. That was love, the quiet kind that lasts. As the months passed, their foundation grew, touching hundreds of lives. Alina became the director, Ethan the quiet supporter in the background, and Sophie, their little miracle, began painting pictures of our family that included 3 people and a dog under a big yellow sun. Sometimes, kindness isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a simple act, like stopping your car for a stranger and saying, "Come home with me." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us continue sharing real, emotional stories that remind us all of the beauty and compassion and second chances. The special request in the comments below, write, "Kindness can change lives." If you believe every small act of goodness can create something extraordinary,